Everybody, welcome to this episode of the Disc Golf Answer Man. I am Bobby Cool, Daddy Slick Breeze. On this episode, this is a Disc Golf Answer Man interview episode, and on this one, I have Hunter Thomas from Foundation Disc Golf. Amazing guy. When I first got back into dynamic discs, I reached out to him because I'd seen him producing a bunch of content, and I wanted to do a little research of what people were thinking, how were they handling as far as making content, and he was one of the ones that I knew would have very helpful information, and he did. He had some great advice for me. So I have him on the show. I will tell you, this particular episode is very heavy on marketing and talking social media. I think it's very valuable information, and I highly recommend that you take a listen. But if it's not something you want to hear about, we're not talking about improving your disc golf form or about any particular disc. So if that's not what you're wanting to listen to, I would take a pass on this episode. But if you do want to learn more about Hunter Thomas, about his start, the way he thinks about disc golf and the way he thinks about disc golf media, this one is packed full of great information. Take a listen. All right, Hunter, so you just got back from the Creator Challenge and all that, traveling, and then I saw even on your social media you guys got stuck in the airport, so crazy traveling. How are you doing, dude? Are you recovering?
I'm trying to recover. You know, recovering with when you come home to a sick toddler just doesn't really work well. But, you know, I'm here. I'm happy to be here, and I'm as energetic as I can be.
That's fantastic. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to be on here because I know your time is valuable running all your companies and all your businesses and doing all this stuff, so I appreciate it. So I thought I'd start out with just jump into the questions, if that's good with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you've told your story before about how you've got into disc golf. Like, I've heard you on other podcasts. I've read articles. You've already talked about how you got started in disc golf. But what's part of that origin story that almost never gets mentioned, but probably shaped how Foundation Disc Golf turned out?
That is a great question. I think it was probably a little bit later. So I got into the sport immediately after high school. And it was just because my brother had already played, and I'm just a super competitive person. So going out, playing a sport against him that he was better than me at did not work well for me, because that meant I had to keep practicing until I got better than him. And that led to me falling in love with disc golf because I played it a bunch trying to get better than my brother. And then you head into the fall, and I was heading to school at Liberty University, and I found out that they had a disc golf team, a collegiate disc golf team. And that, I think, is really what set me on the track that eventually led to Foundation, because that is what introduced me to the world of competitive disc golf and tournaments, and got me playing with people much better than me. Lance Brown, who's a touring pro, was on the team at that time, as was Hannah Croak, now Hannah Macbeth. And so they were going and playing a lot of tournaments. I was kind of the new freshman that was just bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, ready to be as good at disc golf as I could. And so Lance kind of took me under his wing and took me to any tournament he was going to. He was like, hey, if you want to go, you can ride with me. And so I went and played a bunch of tournaments with him, and that got me super into the competitive side. And then what led to eventually Foundation was the fact that Paul Macbeth at that time was dating Hannah, and so he would come to different practices, and then eventually kind of became friends with the team. We had like different game nights and stuff, and he would just kind of come to all that stuff, and we all became really good friends with him during that off season. And then a few years later, me, him, and another guy from the team, Zach, ended up starting Foundation. So it was really the decision to go try out for the Liberty Disc Golf team, you know, just 6 months into playing, that led me to where I am now.
Oh, so I've been in disc golf for quite a few years, and a lot of times I hear that similar story where they play a little bit, they get hooked, they get sucked in, and sometimes they go down the tournament route where they want to be really competitive. Sometimes they go down the route of they just want to have a good time and play local leagues. And then a lot of times it turns into they have 10 discs, 20 discs, and they end up having 300 or 400 discs in their collection, right? But what do you think, what part of that story for you? It sounds like a lot of things that happened in that really helped, but what do you think helped lend to your success of going from that guy that got hooked on disc golf, wanted to turn it into a business, and now here you are with a business and, you know, a presence on social media? What do you think helped you in that area?
Oh boy, I mean, to be honest with you, I think it's funny because people always try to insult me, saying that I rode, either Paul Macbeth or Brody Smith's coattails to get here. And every time I hear that, think, absolutely, I did. I don't deserve to be sitting in this seat. I don't know how I got here. And so when people say that, I think they don't realize that I view that the exact same way, because essentially the only reason I ever even got into Foundation was I knew how to build a website. I was a graphic design major at school. I was working as a freelance designer on the side, and I was managing social media for local real estate agents. And so Paul was like talking to me about, hey, I just signed with Discraft. I'm going to be able to do this retail store thing that I've always kind of wanted to do as more of a passion project, and I need someone to build the website. Will you build the website for me? And so we were talking about pricing and stuff for that, and I was like, hey, man, instead of you paying me to build the website, can I just be part owner in the business, and I'll build the website for free? And he was like, yeah, absolutely. And then I also knew how to edit videos. So the first video on Foundation's channel was just like, we went out and filmed a practice round with Paul of him. I think it might have been him throwing the Luna, or it was something. He was throwing like kind of a newer disc. And we like posted that on our Instagram and like drove traffic to the YouTube, and I edited those videos. And that was kind of like the whole reason the YouTube channel started, was just to have some type of social presence so people knew Foundation existed. And so I kind of just stumbled into that. And then people discovered who Foundation was because we were tied to Paul. And then Brody eventually bought into Foundation a little over a year later. And that's when the social media really took off. And so I had the knowledge to be able to kind of assist in different areas, and I think that really helped. But it wasn't like I built this thing. I think that nowadays I've built a lot of what's in place now, but I really it was really just God's plan for my life for me to get here, because I just kind of stumbled into open door after open door after open door, made decisions that, looking back, I was like, man, I'm really lucky I chose to do that instead of going this direction with my life. But obviously I don't believe in luck. I think that it was God's plan, and he knew exactly where he wanted me to be, and kind of opened the right doors, put me into the right situations to become friends with Paul, to become friends with Brody, to have the skills where when they needed someone to edit videos or to build a website or to run the business, I knew how to do those things. And that's kind of how I ended up here. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I totally agree with you in the fact that, some people may call it luck. I'm with you. I don't call it luck. I call it, I just always want to be, I always think to myself, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. So that means I'm going to do the best and be the best person that I can be, so that when those opportunities come along, I'm ready to go. In fact, I have a tattoo on my arm that says opportunity meets preparation. In other words, I'm prepared for the opportunity to come across my plate, and I'm ready to go, whatever's presented to me. So I love that. So yeah, speaking of now all the social media and all that stuff that you're doing, and you have a growing fan base that we all know how it happens on the internet. They all have opinions, right? And you even talked about how some people have mentioned that you're riding the coattails of these big names. What's something that you've learned the hard way about managing audience's expectations of what you put out and what you do with your disc golf companies?
I think that, one thing that I've learned over time is people are going to kind of make assumptions, and they're going to fall down rabbit holes of it's like a confirmation bias, where you're going to look for things that confirm what you already think about something. And so to a certain extent, people get, and I used to be this way, where you read a negative comment or you see a Reddit thread or whatever, and you want to defend yourself. You want to get out and be like, that's not true. How dare you? Like, this is what actually happened. This is what actually whatever. And early in Foundation, I did that a lot, / we did that a lot, right? Of where there were these perceptions of, oh, I don't even know what all it would be about, but different things going on, or people would see one of our takes on a podcast or something and think they knew everything about us, and then take to social media, and I would go down this rabbit hole defending. And what I learned was that never was productive and led nowhere, right? Because then when you're defending, you're kind of coming from this stance where you're coming after the person, and the person's never going to respond well to you coming after them. And so nowadays I've learned it's much better to just be who you are, let that kind of authentically come through in content. People are going to make opinions. I mean, when you meet people in life, you don't expect everyone to like you. So if you're doing that on a mass scale on social media, why do I all of a sudden expect all the comments to be positive? That's never going to work out. And so you just kind of letting that stuff go, realizing like, hey, I have a body of work that is now 6 years long. If people, want to watch one video and get a whole opinion on me, I'm gonna let my community defend me, or the people know who we are, what we stand for, and stuff like that. And some people aren't gonna like that, and that's fine. That was something that was very tough at the beginning. Was like, I'm a people pleaser. I wanted everyone to like me. Nowadays, I understand like that's just not gonna happen. If everyone likes you, that means you're not really being you, because then you're just being what you think everyone wants you to be, and kind of some cookie cutter fitting into a mold. Versus if you're genuinely, authentically you, you're gonna have diehard fans, which is what I think we have, and you're gonna have people that hate you, and that's okay. Because that's how it's kind of supposed to be. You're supposed to have, if you want people to really love your brand and really love what you're standing for, that means you have to stand for something, which means there's gonna be people that stand against it. And there's no way that both, like, you can't have one without the other. And that's something that took a long time to kind of realize, being in a public presence where you see so many opinions out there, you see so many people that want to, watch one thing and have an opinion. And so just kind of learning to let that stuff go, let it roll off was a big one for me.
Yeah, it's always good to know what your vision is, what your mandate is, and always stick to that. That way, if those little comments come along, they kind of push you. They may put, I know from my personal experience, they push me along, they push me to the side, push me back, make me question what's going on. And I remember I had a guy years ago that literally would post on our YouTube videos, "You're the worst thing to happen to disc golf. You're the worst thing to happen to dynamic disc." Like 4 or 5 videos, he would put something like, "You should be fired." And I took it hard, but I had to remember that, like you said, I'm just being authentic. I'm being myself, because if you try to be someone else, some other character, something else that's crazy or whatever, it's eventually going to wear off and people are going to see right through it. So I love that you said, mentioned being authentic, because it's so much easier to be yourself all the time, because that's who you are. So that's good stuff. So, but, I've heard on different podcasts or different videos are done where you are enjoying what you're doing. You love what you're doing. And I'm sure everybody's familiar with the whole saying of find a job that you love and never work another day in your life, right? Mm-hmm. But at some point, it had to have gone from, this feels more like a job than something I love to do. Or have you hit that point? Have you thought about that point? And then how are you going to work yourself through that?
At the end of the day, it is a job, right? So there's parts of every job you don't like doing. I always use, this is my immediate fallback, because it is the number one bane of my existence, and probably always will be until I hire someone to do it, which is filing sales tax every month. The fact that you have to, once you cross different thresholds and establish a nexus in different states, and I got to go through and file like 25 different states sales tax, and everyone has different laws, that sucks, right? Yeah. So the once a month when that hits and I'm sitting down cranking through that, that's a job, that's work. Mm-hmm. But the fact that I get to come to work and on an average week, I'm playing disc golf 4 to 5 times a week as part of my job. And not only that, but the days I'm not playing disc golf, I'm doing something I love with graphic design or creating content in some way, shape, or form for social media. And I'm genuinely like best friends with pretty much everyone I work with. It's hard to come into work and have a bad attitude or it feel like work, because I'm just surrounded by people I love. We're all passionate about what we're doing, and we're super passionate about the sport, and we know the type of impact that we have made and can make in this sport, and that kind of drives us day to day. There's some days where maybe I'll be burnt out, but it's good because Trevor's not burnt out. Or maybe Trevor and I are both like, just this, going through the grind, and Connor and Silas are super passionate, or however it may be. There hasn't really been a day yet where we all come in and we all are like, this sucks. Yeah. When that day hits, maybe it will. I just have a hard time believing it will, because we're very blessed to do what we do. And I think that one key as a business owner that I found is, just because I dislike a certain task doesn't mean everyone does. Like, as crazy as it sounds, someone out there just heard me talk about sales tax and was like, that's what gets me fired up. I'm ready to go for that. Because back in the day, editing videos was something that I was okay at, but I didn't love doing it. But I've been able to hire people who do love doing it. And so now that's something where they come in and they're really excited about a part of the piece of work that I wasn't super excited about. Same thing with, order fulfillment and inventory management. That stuff stresses me out. Brad and Jason absolutely love it. So I'm able to hire people that not only do something at the level I did it at, but far exceed it and bring more passion to it, which means they can push that side of the business forward. And that's where real growth starts to come in, because now it's not just another thing on my checklist. It's something someone's super excited about, and they can put a lot of time, energy, and effort into and really grow that side of the business. So that's been a big thing too. But yeah, there's always going to be something about work that is work.
Yeah. Did you find it hard to? Now, I know you mentioned editing wasn't like, it sounded like it wasn't your favorite thing to do. You knew it had to be done. But as far as the creativity part of the media side of things, or even any other area, do you ever find it hard, or did you find it hard to delegate that because they weren't going to do it quite as you thought it should happen?
Oh, definitely. Delegation, I think, is one of the biggest areas that I've grown in over the last year or two. Yeah. Because not necessarily that I thought I could do it better than someone else. I just knew it almost is something where it feels like it's going to be harder for me to explain this to you the way I want it done than it is just for me to do it. And that's true for the one time, right? Like if there's a task of designing a thumbnail, the first time it is going to be easier for me just to sit down and design that thumbnail than it would be for me to sit down with someone and explain to them how to design a thumbnail. But what I had to kind of learn is it's not the one time, it's a compounding task. So this task is something that has to happen multiple times a week. So yes, where it might be faster for me to take care of it today, it's not faster. If I train you today, maybe it takes me 3 days, right? If I train you 3 days for this week, now it's something that's off my plate 52 weeks a year. And if there's 3 times a week, that's over 150 times it's off my plate. And I had to go longer on it on 3 times. And so that was something I had to kind of see the bigger picture on, where, what's also cool is when you trust someone and train them. And like I said, if you find people who are really passionate and skilled at it, then they're able to do it at a level that far exceeds yours. I mean, if you look at our videos when I first started and it was just me behind the camera, and me editing and stuff like that, versus you look at the quality of our videos now, I'm legitimately not capable of putting out the quality of content we put out now. Like I wouldn't even know where to start. You can tell on weeks when our editors are out and it's me behind here sweating bullets in my office trying to get this thing cranked out. People have noticed, like, what the heck happened to the scorecard? Why is it all of a sudden Comic Sans at the bottom? What's going on here? And it's like, that's the difference, is we're able to push that forward because now there's people who are way more talented than me, way more passionate than me running with these projects, and I don't have to do that myself. So that's the power of delegation, but it took me a long time to accept that, like I think it takes most people.
Yeah, no, and it sounds like very much along the whole thinking of, as a leader, don't always try to be the smartest person in the room, because that's not what leaders typically are. They usually just know how to make those smart people accomplish tasks. So I like that. All right, I'm going to throw you a little curveball about the media that you do. So you film a lot of chaotic stuff, a lot of challenges and weird, wild shots. What's the dumbest thing someone has ever done with those challenges on camera?
Oh boy, we've done some dumb stuff. Honestly, some of the dumbest things we've ever done have been some of the worst performing videos. So they haven't really come back. Like the first one that we always bring up is like plywood disc golf. We had the idea of, what if we just went and got a sheet of plywood and we played doubles, and basically how it worked was I can affect the flight of your disc with this piece of plywood. So you can throw a roller and I can set the plywood up to have it ramp off. It all was based on, we wanted to get a roller ace. And so that was where the idea was born. Nowadays, I'm looking at it and I'm like, that was never going to work. No wonder no one watched that. I mean, it was literally called plywood disc golf. Who's clicking on that? But, that's the learning curve. We've also done like a slip and slide disc golf, which is exactly what it sounds like. We just set up a slip and slide and had a basket at the end. Again, really great social content idea for like Instagram. Terrible idea for YouTube, because why are you, like, once you see us go down the slip and slide once, you don't need to watch it anymore. It's the same thing over and over. So there's a lot of that where it was just learning the YouTube game, and we would have these ideas, and for some reason we weren't thinking like, oh, that'd be a really fun Instagram post. We're just like, that's hilarious. Let's go try to make a YouTube video out of this thing. And it would not work. So slip and slide disc golf, plywood disc golf, alley-oop disc golf. We've done a few where similar idea to plywood, but you can basically, as long as your feet were off the ground, you could catch the disc and rethrow it. That went about exactly how you thought, just a bunch of us getting hit with discs. Discs are not Frisbees. They're much harder. So that was pretty dumb too. But yeah, a lot of our earlier videos, we had some dumb stuff.
I like though that you're still doing it, right? You know that you got to test it and you got to try it. You never know what's going to hit,
Yeah.
and you got to and you got to get those reps in so that you get better and better and your ideas become better. I think that's fantastic. Okay, if you could delete one disc golf trend, idea, or fan behavior, just snap your finger and it's gone. What would that be?
Oh boy. Disc golf trend or fan behavior. Oh gosh. There's no way to answer this question without ticking a bunch of people off, huh?
I have a couple. I have a couple.
Okay. I think if I could snap my fingers and make something go away tomorrow, it would be how much people care about ratings. Because I think that greatly affects what tournaments like amateurs are playing. It affects how people like if you're playing bad in a round, all you're thinking about is like, this is gonna tank my rating, next rating update, so on and so forth. And also, I don't know. It's not a perfect system. Everyone knows that. I think it's a fun system, but people put so much weight into it that it kind of like highlights the imperfections a lot of times, which I think is not the greatest thing because, again, people just tie so much value to it. I mean, I remember back in the day, there were certain companies that wouldn't even sponsor you unless you were 10-15 rated. And so I had people not wanting to play certain tournaments because they're like, oh, if we're playing the same layout as the AMs, I don't want to risk my rating dropping because I'm trying to get sponsored by so on and so forth. And I was like, brother, just come out and play the tournament. It's going to be a good time. But they're like, no, I don't want to risk, only end up shooting like 9-15 rated because I'm trying to get to 10-15. You know what I mean? So I think how much people care about ratings, if I could snap my fingers and make that go away, I would.
So as a store owner, what are your thoughts on the debate of, and maybe this is just an internal debate amongst content creators, of who do you think moves more discs, the players or more on the influencer side? Now, when I look back at when I was producing a lot of content, the influencers were the players, but now you've got people that their whole shtick or whatever is to create disc golf content, and they don't really have high aspirations of becoming like world champions. But who do you think moves the needle more as far as moving product?
I'm probably the wrong person to ask here because we have a very biased view because we're the creators and the retailer. So we are directly seeing how much our bags influence. Actually, funny enough, I'm about to write the blog on our year-to-date sales for different discs. And the creator, if you will, our discs, our personality discs, top the charts. So like the best seller year to date for us is the MD3 from Discmania, but that's because we did Break 68 MD3 tied to one of our videos, and it sold like hotcakes. And so another one is like the Thunderbird, which has a personality disc with me, the Cash, which has a personality disc with Trevor, the Shaman with Connor. These are discs that, on their own don't really move that much, but once we tie them to a video, tie them to a personality, it really moves the needle. So I think it's a little unfair for us because those are discs that are only available with us. So on the grand scheme of the whole disc golf market, MD3s weren't the number one mover, right?
Right.
But with us, they were because it's tied straight to our video. I think my biggest argument for why creators move the needle more than just pros is Simon Lizotte. Because Simon is able to, drastically change the scope of MVP, drastically change even Discmania's sales before, and it didn't matter how he performed on the course. Obviously, winning on the course helped, but you have a player like Gannon Burr who wins on the course a lot, and I think you can ask any retailer who's moving more, and the Simon line balance, the Simon line time lapse, anything Simon tied to Simon is moving more than Gannon, even though Gannon Burr just had the greatest season of all time last year, or arguably one of them. And what's the difference there? Simon's a consistent, large presence on YouTube that also happens to be a player. And I think that's where you really see that those fusing together. And players who have been able to do that well, I mean, even Brody Smith, when he first burst on the scene, his Get Freaky Zones were a good seller everywhere. Same thing with Ezra Aderhold. Obviously, he just won this past weekend, but his Nukes, his Tour Series stuff has been selling for a long time. I think anyone who is like a creator and a player sells way more than someone who is just a player. The only kind of like exceptions to these rules is Paul Macbeth, Paige Pierce, Ricky Wysocki for a little bit there, where they were so dominant for so long that they didn't have to be a creator. Their stuff just moved. But in general, I think creators overall are moving the needle the most, but especially player creators.
But even with Paul Macbeth, because I can think, and you know him obviously better than me, but I remember back in the day when he was just starting out, rising star, he would still kind of play some games on Instagram of how he posts stuff and said things. So even though he wasn't like creating like YouTube videos and stuff like that, I still felt like he understood the game of marketing, at least to where it was back then. So yeah, I definitely agree. So let's transition that thinking into your store and your media. So if I were to take a step back, what would you say the percentage is as far as how much of your disc golf business is media? Because I have a feeling you think very similar to my thinking is that the way I built it was Dynamic Disc was a disc golf company, but I was a media company. So I was building a media company with the guys that worked for me. I'm assuming that's kind of similar to probably your line of thinking. So how much is it for you as far as Foundation Disc Golf and Foundation, the marketing media company?
Yeah, we get this question often in different shapes, because if we're just looking from a revenue standpoint, we're like 75% a disc golf store, 25% a media company, right?
Okay.
If you're just looking like top line revenue. But that 75% of a disc golf store doesn't exist without our media. So how I view it, when we first started, we were a disc golf retailer that happened to use media to try to sell discs.
Yeah.
That flipped in 2020 when Brody bought in. And nowadays I describe us as a disc golf media company that sells discs. I'd very much view us as a media company first, because that's what spins all the wheels. That's what gets revenue. That's what gets people to our site, all of that. I think, it's funny is I talk to a lot of different entrepreneurs, both in the space and outside the space, just because I'm trying to learn from everyone. And people are consistently very surprised at how little we spend on marketing. And I have to always just remind people like, well, no, my marketing dollars go to the salary of my media team, because we can organically reach so many people that we don't have to pay for Facebook ads. And when we do, we're paying for Facebook ads or Google search ads to a warm audience. We're able to retarget people who have already seen our stuff. So we don't have to teach people who Foundation is. That's what our organic content's for. We're taking that of, you already know who Foundation is, but did you know we also sell discs? Did you know we also have these courses? Do you know we also have this? And we're able to retarget a warm audience. So it actually makes our ad spend, our cost per conversion lower, so we are able to get better ROI on that type stuff, but we spend way less than other companies, because other companies have to use marketing spend to teach you who they are and get you to convert. Instead, we use our organic content to teach you who we are, and a lot of times we use organic content to also convert into sales as well. So our kind of marketing budget is our media team's salaries, if that makes sense, because if you don't include me and Brody, even though we pretty much do all media, our media team is 3 people that are full-time. All they do is just content. And then Brody and I, pretty much all we do is content. I obviously run and oversee the business, but the majority of my day-to-day work is content-oriented in some way, shape, or form. So if you throw us in, we have a 5-person media team, and a 2-person full-time warehouse team, and then part-time, warehouse and retail store employees under that. So,
yeah, and I saw you were kind of venturing into just the golf world rather than just disc golf, and it sounds like you're kind of using that thinking along that way. Is that you're going to use your personality, your media presence to kind of drive the sale of golf equipment. Are you going to go full on golf equipment, or more like golf apparel, or?
No, so golf, we're going to go, golf, we'll have some apparel and that type stuff, but it's a pure media expansion.
So it's just to play on the popularity of golf.
Correct. We're not looking at building the exact same Foundation disc golf we built in golf. Yeah. It's more just a way of, really what it comes down to is I have been approached by so many families and different people who really appreciate what Foundation does, where we create clean, entertaining, sports-related content on YouTube. And they're like, I can turn this on and I don't have to worry that my 4-year-old's in the room with me. Or I can turn it on and my whole family can sit down after dinner and watch this together. And I don't have to worry about y'all cursing or about y'all making crude jokes or whatever. And I started to think about that. And one company that I love the content of, but I had to change my perspective of when I'm watching them post having my son, is Barstool Sports. I really like all the content they put out. They're very funny, very crude. You cannot watch that. I mean, my wife doesn't even let me watch it in front of her. She doesn't even like hearing it. And so, but, you know, as a sports fan, I like listening to different podcasts. I like watching them play golf or watching these different sports challenges. It's just something you can't do in front of kids, or you can't do in front of your wife, or if you just don't want that going in your ears as a Christian, or if you're religious in some other way, you don't want a lot of times the swearing or the crude humor and stuff like that. And so I saw, wow, we're filling this need in disc golf. Why can't we fill it elsewhere as well? Right. And so that's kind of where the golf comes in. The big motivator for why Trevor and I are the face of the golf content right now is it allows us to play golf once a month and call it work. If I'm being just completely frank, is we both love playing golf, and it's like, hey, it worked out for disc golf. What if we were able to make this golf thing work? But the play eventually is to introduce another personality into the golf sphere so that we can keep cranking out disc golf, doing what we love, and then build out the Foundation personalities that way. And hopefully eventually Foundation Disc Golf is always the core of who we are. It's always the core of what we do. But it's one of many sports channels that all kind of provide this clean, entertaining sports content and pour into each other. And as a disc golfer, I also see that as a big way of growing the sport, because right now, a lot of times people always are asking us, when are we going to collab with X, Y, or Z athlete? And I'm like, that'd be sick if they knew disc golf existed, right? Like if Bob Does Sports, which is a huge YouTube golf channel, knew disc golf existed, of course we would. So then I started thinking, well, what if we became the people who already know disc golf exists, where we build out the golf channel, we're able to use our knowledge from disc golf on YouTube to build out a platform, and then we can integrate and grow the sport that way. Like, what if we can build the outside arm as disc golfers, and that becomes something that pours into the sport? It's a lofty goal, and I don't know if it's one that's going to work out, but it's something where it allows me to play golf for free, quote unquote, once a month. So I'm going to keep pursuing it.
I like it. No, I like it. You literally become the collaborator that you're collaborating with. So I like that.
Exactly.
That's awesome. So, okay. So that's interesting. So maybe I know the answer to this question, but let's say that Foundation Disc Golf is gone, vanishes, poof, right? What are you doing? Not like, I'm not talking like it went bankrupt. I'm talking like it just didn't exist. What would you be doing?
Just as like my personal job?
Yeah.
My dream was always to build a marketing agency. Mainly, I was very fortunate to grow up with a father who owned his own business, and so therefore he was at every one of my basketball games. He coached me for most of my sports practices. We went on vacation throughout the year. If my brother or sister was sick and had to go to a doctor or something, my dad was able to take off work and be home with us. And as I got older and started to mature, I realized that was a blessing, that's not normal, that, not everyone got to do that. And I realized the reason was my dad owned his own business and was able to create his own schedule. So if he wanted to be off at 3 p.m. to be able to drive to our game that's 2 hours away and make sure he's there for me, he could do that. So from the get-go, I knew I want to own my own business so I can create my own schedule. Even if that means sacrificing income, I value my future family and the freedom to be with them enough that I don't really care. And so I started to work down that route. That's how I ended up here. Is I was doing freelance graphic design. I was doing social media, and the goal was eventually get busy enough with that to hire someone under me to take some off my plate, keep growing and building that to where I was a one-stop shop for everything you needed for graphic design, social media marketing, digital and print media marketing, all that stuff. So that was the road I was on, and that was the road I was never convinced I'd be off of. But obviously, God had other plans, and I've been able to kind of build that within disc golf. Now I'm kind of building a media and marketing company inside of disc golf, and now that my son's, 2.5, he'll be 3 here in a few months, I've already been able to kind of see, and I have to kind of check myself because I love work. It's something I love to do. But I'm like, the whole reason I built this or am building this is to have the freedom to spend time with him. So I need to make sure I'm actually using that freedom to spend time with him. And I'm not telling my wife, no, I can't come home early to take my son fishing, or no, I can't do whatever. So I'm trying to be very intentional with that, because that's, the whole reason I wanted to build this. But that's definitely what I would be doing if I wasn't here.
So let's say, and we'll kind of circle back a little bit with the you doing the social media and the media and marketing and then the golf. What would you do, or not what would you do, but let's say it takes off even more, like skyrockets it, and you start seeing more like the direction of, just for a great example because of the style of videos, Dude Perfect style. Things just really take off mainstream for you. Would you ever say goodbye to disc golf, or would disc golf still be at the center of what you do for your videos?
Oh, no, we would never, ever say goodbye to disc golf.
Yeah.
No, there's no chance. Mainly, it's what gave us, in that world, it's what gave us any type of platform to build what that is. And again, disc golf's what we love, right? Like, we love this sport. And I think that one of the things that makes disc golf so attractive to people who you introduce it to is it's really easy to play. It's really cheap to get into, and that makes it super accessible. Whereas, like, I have plenty of friends that love to play golf but can't play golf because, clubs are really expensive. Heck, balls are expensive for how much you lose them when you suck at golf like I do. And then you got to pay like $60 to go play a round, sometimes $60 to play 9 holes. So when you look at that and you look at, your monthly budget, it's like, yeah, I can probably swing golf like once or twice a month, but your average person's not going out and playing golf 4, 5, 6 times a month, because now we're looking at like $300 a month. Like that doesn't make any sense. Versus disc golf, it's like I can walk into a used section, pick up 3 discs for $20, and that's my expense. Those discs are going to last me as long as I want them to. Pretty much every course is free, so I can go play that 30 times a month if I want to. And I think that in a big scheme, like let's say that it blew up and, our golf channel / whatever is like Dude Perfect level, I'd be screaming from the mountaintops like, hey, disc golf is something that you can get into, because I think that would be something where a lot of people want to get outside. They want to be active. That's why golf content's so popular. That's why all these things are so popular, but the accessibility is not there. And disc golf has that. I think that's one of the biggest things for disc golf. So no, it would never go away. Honestly, I mean, obviously it wouldn't be able to be a bigger part because the other pools are bigger. So if you're getting millions of views, there's just not millions of views to be had in disc golf, which is completely fine. But fingers crossed one day there is. And if we can play a role in getting that there, I think that would be phenomenal. I think that'd be awesome.
Perfect. All right. What's something you believe about disc golf could be about the sport, the culture, the business that most people just completely miss?
Oh, boy. I think, back to the pro side, I was actually thinking about this somewhat recently, because I think that a lot of pros miss how important social media is to what they're doing. Because if you look at other sports, you don't have to be your own brand or marketer, because if you're good enough at basketball, you're going to get paid well. If you're good enough at baseball, if you're good enough at golf, it doesn't matter if your clothes sell, if your discs sell, whatever. If you're a good enough golfer, you don't even have to have endorsements. You're going to go out and make millions on the PGA Tour. That's not really true in disc golf, right? Like, yes, you can be Gannon Buhr and you can make enough money, but if you're 20th in the world and you're just relying on your Pro Tour earnings, you're probably going to struggle being out there on the road. And so I think that that's something that gets overlooked is, yes, you have to pursue being better at disc golf. But if you neglect building a brand and building community around what you love to do and who you are, you're going to leave a lot of money on the table. Not that it's all about money, but it's about money to the point of being able to survive day to day. And not only that, if you're able to build a brand where, your discs are selling, your Tour Series discs are selling, the manufacturers want to pay you because you actually move the needle, it takes all the pressure off of your play. Because now I don't have to worry about if I don't cash, I'm going to have to DoorDash more next week to be able to pay for my Airbnb to make it to the next tournament. Now I don't have to worry about that because my Tour Series discs are killing it. I'm getting ad revenue from YouTube. I'm doing brand deals on YouTube and on social media. And if I go out and cash, great. If I don't, that's okay. And now you're actually able to play more freely and play better because you're not so stressed. So I think that's something that in disc golf is getting missed of like, yes, other sports, you focus on being the athlete, it leads to the paycheck. Disc golf's not there yet. There's just not enough money in the sport to just strictly be a good enough athlete. It'll lead to the paycheck. That's for the like 1% of the 1% in disc golf. But the players who are very, very good at disc golf, I mean, top 20 players in the world, top 30 players in the world, it's not there yet. So instead, you still have to build out your marketing platforms. You still have to, have social media and build out your brand because I'm sure as a manufacturer, y'all see it when a player has social media ties, when a player is posting and trying, they're going to move more towards Series Plastic than a player who it goes out there and might have better finishes, but has no social media presence. No one knows who they are. I mean, our coverage, unless you're top 8, you're really not even on coverage. So you can be coming 25th every week and no one might ever hear your name. So you kind of have to scream from mountaintop about who you are, what you stand for, and what you're doing out there.
Yeah, absolutely. That's word for word what I tell the players we have here. A lot of times, and no one in particular on Team DD right now, but there were times where people would say, if I just had someone following me with camera, I could do it all. And it's like, dude, you got to do it yourself. We're not the big companies. There's a false narrative being put out there where it feels like you're just watching one guy with one camera. Those top guys, they have a team of people that help them with their PR and stuff like that. So yeah, it's definitely something it's on them right now because of the state of disc golf right now. Now, will we ever get there? I'm not sure. Hopefully someday, but it'd be nice. But yeah, definitely I would tell them you are a brand, whether you like it or not. You are a brand. It basically comes down to your personality, and what you put out there is what people will see what your brand is. And so you want to take control of that before some other narrative does, for sure. I'm going to ask you one more question, and then if you want to think about it, I'm trying something new with these interviews. I'm going to kind of flip it on you, and I want you to think of a question that you want to ask me. Anything at all, and okay. I will answer it, no matter the cost, no holds barred. So, so you got to be thinking about that for sure. So, I guess my last question, will be kind of along the lines of what you just touched on. It is, give me 3 action steps. Someone approaches you and they're like, dude, I love disc golf. I think I can play really well. I want to be on the top. And I know social media and media is important. Give me the first 3 things I should be doing to make all that happen.
Yeah, okay. So I think step 1 is you have to have a YouTube channel. As much as people don't like it, YouTube is where community's built. It's not necessarily where the reach happens. It's harder to get a consistent audience on YouTube, but the people who are there on YouTube are going to be there. It's longer form content, so they're going to get to know you a little bit more. And when people get to know you more, they'll feel more tied to you. That's where community is really fostered and built. So whether you like it or not, you have to have a YouTube channel, in my opinion. The secondary thing is the other social media platforms are where reach happens. So that's where the algorithms, it doesn't care about how many followers you have. It cares about if your content's good or not. And so the other platforms, I would just find, do you like TikTok? Do you like Facebook? Do you like YouTube Shorts? Do you like Twitter? Do you like Instagram? Whichever one that you're most drawn to, which is typically, if you look at your screen time, whichever one you're scrolling the most on, that's where you should start. And just get posting. Post there once a day. Throw stuff out there and take every analytic, deep dive into it, right? Because I think a lot of people just look at analytics as random numbers. And then the third thing I would say is don't care about the numbers. Because most people who come to me, I've done like social media coaching on the side, and people will come to me and they'll be like, yeah, my first post got 100 views. My second post got like 500 views. This one got 50. Like it's not going anywhere. And I'm like, whoa. Listen to what you just told me. Your first post got 100 views. Your next post got 500 views. What the question you should ask yourself isn't, okay, this sucks. It only got 500 views. Why did that post do 5 times better than your first post? Because if you can figure out that answer, now we can replicate it. Okay, well, in the second one, I was outside. The first one, I was inside. Okay, let's try to make some more content outside. Was that it? Okay, now all of a sudden, they're all getting 500, and this one got 2,500. Again, are we talking big numbers? No. But we're looking at this one did 5 times better again. Why is that? And if we keep studying that, next thing you know, our floor is going to go from 50 up to 1,000, up to 5,000. And now we have where we can figure out, oh, if I go outside, I wear this bright blue shirt, I start with a question, and I throw over water, I'm going to get 50,000 views. And it's like, you learn that about your audience by not caring where you were, because too many people just kind of post. They just throw stuff out there. They don't study their analytics, and their Instagram is just like, yeah, sometimes I get 2,000 views. Sometimes I get 50 views. I don't know. It sucks. The algorithm hates me. It's like, well, no, you're just not feeding the algorithm what it's showing you at once. It gave you 2,000 views here for a reason. And then you can follow all that back. You can use the short form content to learn what your community wants, to then feed them long form content. So if all of a sudden you notice they love, this type video where you're giving tips, and they think that, oh, this is the guy who really knows what he's talking about in the coaching world, and then over on YouTube you're making fun challenge content, well, those are mixed signals. So if everyone loves you coaching on Instagram, make coaching content on YouTube, and then they'll pour into each other. Or vice versa. If I'm trying to make coaching content on YouTube or on Instagram, and people come and watch me on YouTube, and I'm hitting the first available tree and I'm doing stupid challenges, that's mixed signals. I need to make all of that harmonious. So make them all work together. But you have to have YouTube. I think that's first and foremost, just because that's where true community's built. That's where you really find connections. And then you use the other social media platforms as your reach, as your brand awareness, let people know you exist, and try to funnel them over to YouTube. And then be an analytic nerd, study it. And everything means something. You might not know what it means yet. I still don't know what half it means, but everything means something. Something doesn't all of a sudden get more views and have a longer view duration for no reason. There's some reason something became more shareable, and you have to just dive deep and then test until you figure it out.
Perfect. I love it. Preach. The social media guy in me is saying, preach. I love all that stuff. I love all that stuff. Good stuff. All right. What do you have for me? What do you got for me? Fire away. Any discussion you want to talk about?
I think what's most fascinating for you, is you were in Dynamic in what I would call the golden era, right? And then you left Dynamic, you were with Clash for a little bit, and then you left disc golf altogether. And now you're coming back into Dynamic in almost a rebuild era, it feels like, because post House of Disc, I think the perception of Dynamics shifted a lot. So now that you've been in it for a little bit, what are some of the things that you've noticed are different from when you were at Dynamic the first time versus when you're here now? And what are you doing to try to get the golden era back, if you will?
Oh yeah, that's a great question. Something I've been thinking about in my brain every time I go back to the condo here is how do I do that? Because I've been telling people that I came back to the same company, but I did not come back to the same company. There's a lot of things that have changed. And I'm certainly not naive to think that, I just show up and things are back to the way it was. No. I had an amazing cast of characters, I call it, that I had. I had the team. I had Melton. Of course, Melton still. I've been contacting Melton, but we had Oakley, Zach Melton, Chris Clemens. All these guys were great friends and had great chemistry together. We had Robert McCall, had Danny and Anthony. And it isn't as simple as some people would like, to where I just snap my finger and everybody's back here working. I mean, that's just not how business works. And it's not the state that we are right now. There's a lot more logistical type stuff. Just today, there were some complications with the hot stamp machine, with getting a product here, and something that gets released today just got stamped. Or something that gets released tomorrow just got stamped today. And I'm like, okay, I guess I have to create content around it, right? And then I've got to go ask people where it's at. Oh, it's over in this box over here. It's not in the normal place yet because it took a while to get it done. And back in the day, it felt like because things were smaller, if something was coming out and being released, it was so easy for me to walk up, grab the disc, go make some content real quick, go out to Jones Park, make content, bring it back, and put it out there. Now I have to tell somebody where I grabbed it from. I have to tell them which shelf I grabbed it from, and then I got to tell them I'm going to take it for marketing purposes. It's all good. It's needed. I'm not complaining, but it's made things a little more complicated. And it's back to square one of it's just me doing it. So now it's on me to create the content, to think of the campaigns. So that's the challenges, and I'm not complaining. I love it. It gets me going. So I had to finally come to a conclusion very recently that it is just like you said. It's just I have to have grace with myself, grace with where we're at right now, and I have to stop thinking, oh, if I could just get it back to the way it was, if I could just have what I had before. I'm right here, and all I can think is now I just move forward. What worked in the past? Making connections, building relationships with people that make content, relationship with players, with stores, and then move up from there and move forward. And then again, have grace that I know it's just going to take time to build. And as long as we talked before, as long as I've got that vision, that mission, that mandate, and I keep that in my focus, I honestly believe that we can bring it back to where we had it. I was here when Dynamic Discs was at its best, and I know what it felt like. And there are a lot of people that are in the same boat. They're here. They know what it was like. They wanted to get back. It feels like it's weird because we have more resources, it means we have more responsibility. So it feels like it takes a little bit longer to get there. I used to, we just talk on a competitive level, when we were like, okay, we're going to be better than Discraft, we're going to be better than Innova. We were much more nimble because we were a smaller company. Now I see why it takes a while for certain things to happen, why it takes longer for a bigger company to make things happen. There's so many more moving parts and gears that have to make it just right and make it happen. And so it's learning how to implement things that I did before, but now with a different company, a much larger companies, learning how to make all that work. I don't know if that's too vague of an answer, but that's kind of where my head's at.
No, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So, and then, I reached out to you very early on when I came back because I'm watching what you guys are doing and what's working, what's happening, and I'm trying to implement that into what Dynamic Disc is right now. And it's been awesome watching you guys. And again, I appreciate you coming on the show. I could talk marketing all day. Hopefully, some of our listeners got some value out of this. I think they did because they understand where my head's at with these interviews. So, but again, I appreciate it, Hunter, and thank you for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much. You as well.
All right, thanks, Matt.